Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Tsujimoto Perspectives in Global Development Seminar. Can you hear me okay? Very good.
Yeah.
So I'd like to welcome the students and other attendees here in the classroom with us today, as well as those of you who are participating online. And I'm Louise Buck in the Department of Natural Resources and Environment here at Cornell, and I'm one of 3 co-instructors for the for those who are taking this course for credit. And I know there's some of you who participate on a non-credit basis, and that's fantastic. It is my great pleasure today to introduce a longtime colleague, Dr. Gay Nicholson, who leads the Sustainable Finger Lakes group here in this region. Gay actually founded the Tompkins Sustainable Tompkins, thanks, before she recognized the potential for expanding that work to the region, to the Finger Lakes region. And she started the Sustainable Tompkins was formed, I think, in 2004, and she's been building it ever since. Gay has a background in systems thinking and in regional planning and sustainable agriculture. She has many layers of credentials that prepare her to do the very ambitious work that she undertakes, which is to catalyze and to convene and to help build capacity among community leaders and across a whole range of partnerships in this region to help create a more and support a more regional sustainability and justice movement. So thank you so much for being with us here, Gay. It's really a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Louise. I'm glad to be here. Is this mic loud enough for everything that we need to do? Great. Let's see. So as Louise was mentioning, Sustainable Finger Lakes is a community-based nonprofit founded back in 2004 to support local action and education in the many, many diverse facets of living and working more sustainably. Many of us knew us as Sustainable Tompkins for 18 years before we changed our name in 2022 to Sustainable Finger Lakes, recognizing that system change can't be confined to a municipal boundary and that it needs to be realized at the regional level where our workforce and economy are distributed and our watersheds and food sheds are. So we have been acting as a connector, convener, and catalyst to engage both the grassroots and policymakers in the work of redesigning how we work and live so that our community can more successfully, at least try to cope successfully with the global challenges of climate disruption and energy transitions. It all started with a meeting back in City Hall back in 2003. It was a discussion hosted by City Planning about the issues we faced as a society and our potential for being more organized in meeting those challenges. I was asked to carry out a feasibility study. I'd recently left being the executive director of the Finger Lakes Land Trust and looking for doing something a little more aimed at changing the human behavior, not just protecting the land. So I launched a process of study circles and salons to engage a couple hundred people from all different jobs and backgrounds and interest areas, and to have conversations on all sorts of different aspects of living more sustainably. And this all culminated in a circle summit of over 100 citizen leaders who voted with their feet to go and stand by different projects that they thought we ought to be working on and to see if those could all be launched into initiatives. It was pretty clear that the endeavor had some legs. For a feasibility study, it was like we were already doing it before we had even ended the feasibility study. So one of our primary roles has been in convening people to learn together on just a really wide variety of topics. Our circles and salons were followed by master classes, teach-ins, film screenings and panels, design workshops, webinars, and a series of regional multi-day conferences on climate, energy, health, transportation, covered a lot of the ground of what we need to be thinking about. We always made an effort to try to share these different convenings with the general public, but also with elected officials and staff in agencies. For our Finger Lakes Forecast webinar series, we had volunteers look up the emails of all of the county legislators from all the counties around us and city council members and some targeted town board members to invite them to these webinars to learn on these topics of what will be the climate impacts in the Finger Lakes region. You know, most elected officials at the local level, they have day jobs. They don't have time to do a lot of research on all the complicated things that are coming at us. So we felt that this offering these webinars so they could learn about flooding and learn about harmful algae blooms and due to climate changes and siting of renewable energy. All these were, you know, quick studies for them so that they, you know, could have a chance to be at least a little conversant as these topics came before their town boards or city councils. I specifically worked on inviting them to our multi-day conferences in which some of their peers from other places might be providing leadership on a particular topic related to sustainability so that they could maybe be inspired by a peer in a role similar to theirs. I really think that all of this has been really important for increasing shared knowledge and shifting policymaking into a more informed realm. I've lived here for 47 years and I've seen policy making in a very uninformed manner. So whatever we can do to help these elected officials, you know, do a better job is so important. Another significant arena for our work has been on greening the economy. Starting with our 2005 Sustainable Technology Showcase with lots of partners from Cornell that was aimed at our local business community to help them get more conversant on clean energy, fuel cells, what are those things, you know, and waste reduction, circular economy, circular manufacturing, get them to be, you know, more informed. We also then worked with the Tompkins County Solid Waste Division to create Finger Lakes Buy Green, this first website, so that people could look up, well, where can they buy a green product? And then we were also working together on a green purchasing collaborative. We brought the colleges together along with some municipalities to form a sort of a green purchasing, you know, collective in terms of being able to buy. In those days, the recycled paper content, copy paper was more expensive. So how can you buy in bulk, drive the price down so budget people don't yell at you? So we did a number of things like that, also along green cleaning at these facilities. That led to putting together the region's first green collar career fair that we held out at the community college at TC3 and invited high schools and community colleges from the region to come and wander around this big space and talk to people who were working in not just clean energy jobs, you know, installing heat pumps or renewable energy, but all the other many aspects of living more sustainably. Back in 2006, one of our spin-off organizations was the Green Resource Hub, which provided networking and education for local businesses for several years. It was sort of like a green chamber of commerce. And we had these great monthly meetings out at La Tourelle that hosted us. And Along with that, we launched this Sustainable Enterprise and Entrepreneur Network, which was helping businesses learn how to certify themselves as operating more sustainably. And then, of course, hosting green drinks, which is a national program, but easy to do. Pick a nice locale and invite all your colleagues and get together and have drinks and catch up with each other now and then. By the way, speaking of green careers, the guy in the upper left corner of the slide, Bob Rossi, was my co-founder of that nonprofit, and is now for a number of years been the executive director of the New York State Sustainable Business Council. And the woman we hired to be the coordinator for our Sustainable Enterprise and Entrepreneur Network was Anna Kellis, who then went on to serve as a county legislator and has been our assemblywoman for a number of years now. And Anna's been this force of nature in the assembly, educating the other assembly members on crypto, blockchain, data centers, environmental issues, landfills. She's very articulate and informed, and she helps, they're policymakers too, and lots of times they're not very informed when they're making policy. Let's see. A really important role for us has been in supporting the movement in general. We do some of our own thing, but a lot of it is all about supporting others. And we've done as much as we have the capacity to do that. We're quite a small group. So for many years, we hosted an annual Signs of Sustainability party in December, where we gave out certificates in various categories to organizations or businesses, making some advances. And we made a real effort to try to get some of those mainstream businesses to recognize them when they had taken a step, and have them come to the party and be recognized. And that we're not, an insular tribe in terms of trying to get these changes made. We were also a co-founder of Building Bridges that worked to connect the dots between environmental activism and social justice, which is a key aspect of sustainability, and there had been some suspicion between, what you care about over here on social justice and caring for the planet, and not having that be a conflict, but rather something we are working together to heal. And so that was went on for a number of years and did some good work. We also organize a column in Tompkins Weekly, a local paper called Signs of Sustainability, and we open that up and organize it for all the other groups to have a dedicated space for them to talk about their issues, an event that they're hosting, thoughts on issues that we're confronting. And we also maintain a regional sustainability map. It's got close to 1,000 entries in it in 8 main categories and 42 subcategories to help people, connect to each other. One of the most enduring ways we have been supporting the movement is with our neighborhood mini grant program that we launched back in 2008. And it's to provide practical support for folks with a good idea, but not necessarily the income to purchase the materials and supplies or tools that they might need to get something going. So the mission of this program is to stimulate resident-based grassroots initiatives that improve quality of life or long-term health in our local communities, promote environmental stewardship and green practices, generate collaboration between differing groups, and create opportunities for leadership and civic engagement. Twice a year, we put out a call for applications, postering around town, press releases, etc. And then we have a mini grant council that looks at those applications and decides how to distribute the money. But oftentimes we're also giving a lot of feedback because the applicants are newbies, to the sustainability movement or recently moved here. We can point to other resources and partners that they can connect to and to enhance what they're doing. Thus far, we've raised through sponsorships and given away over $100,000 to support 250 projects in Tompkins County. They've been a really wonderfully diverse set of projects serving various sectors of the community. You can see here the different themes: food, environment, community building, transportation, energy and climate, waste and reuse, and the different populations being served, low income or seniors, youth, or just everybody. About half of the projects have benefited the city of Ithaca, being urban in their focus, but plenty have been out in the outlying towns and villages and rural areas as well. Our applicants have ranged from single individuals to neighborhood groups to small nonprofits to micro businesses looking to green up their operations or do something to benefit the community. We really love this program. It's a happy program. We're proud to have provided the seed money for so many wonderful community endeavors, some of which have grown wonderfully and turned into their own thriving nonprofits, like Finger Lakes Toy Library, where you can come and check out libraries, tools, toys appropriate to your kids' ages, and then turn them back in and get some more. So such a great idea. Others are one-off projects, like in the upper left, you see a woman standing by in the cafeteria at the Dryden High School. A student group came up with the idea of buying reusable silverware because it disgusted them that they were throwing away all these plastic utensils every day. And so we gave them a mini grant to go buy the silverware, and it's been very successful. The kids did a good job of not letting the metal silverware end up in the trash. I think and it's saved the school district some money a lot instead of buying those plastic ones. Other examples are, you can see we've paid for several bike repair stations. One's in downtown Ithaca, one's out in Village of Groton, so that people have a place where they come and put their bike up on this rack, and there's some tools there, and they can change tires and tighten brakes and that kind of thing. So there's been a lot around the biking infrastructure and biking workshops, that kind of thing. This summer, we also, besides sharing those stories out on our website and social media and in press releases, we've started making some video shorts to share the stories of our awardees, to tune more people into what's going on in our community. It's so important, storytelling and shaping narratives in terms of reaching people and inspiring them to support someone else's efforts, or to find the courage to finally get going with their own good idea, see other people doing it. Another aspect of supporting the movement is to help them find each other and to collaborate and partner on issues, or just simply to have each other's backs when it comes to calling the governor's office or signing a petition for a policy shift. We put together this regional sustainability map a few years ago, expanding on our old Tompkins County one you can see in the lower corner there, that I created in 2007. We have, as I said, about 1,000 organizations on it. You can sort by county. You can sort by any of the 42 subcategories, like you see here, sorting on transportation, biking, and walking around the region. And then to learn more, you can click on one of those pins, and up comes all the details and links to the website. So you can really browse through and see who do you want to connect with, and picked our wonderful Bike Walk Tompkins group that's doing so much good work in our community. So this year we're trying to work on taking that a step further. I have a Cornell student who's my intern, helping me with this. We want the map. The map is kind of static display, and I'd like to see what we can do with a social network analysis platform, and try to move some of this information from the map into a more interactive space. We're surveying the groups in the main map sector, starting with climate and energy, and to ask them, what are the specific issues you've been working on the last 3 years? Who do you partner with? What's your role and capacities? Are you a storyteller? Are you a policy analyst or advocate? Or are you building demonstrations of the alternative to show people how we can do things differently? I think this will help us identify gaps in our movement and hopefully support a lot more networking and partnership within and across sectors. So we've covered many sustainability topics over the last 21 years, but we've always been really deeply involved in helping to identify and adopt solutions to our climate crisis. These have included in-person classes with lower-income women to help them learn about that equipment in the basement, how it works, how to weatherize, and some DIY steps they can take. We created an online platform to help the fracking activists start shrinking their own carbon footprint because they're being accused of hypocrisy, and it was kind of valid. Many of them hadn't done anything yet about tightening up their homes. We did a youth climate challenge offering small grants to youth. This picture here is of this amazing pair of students from Ithaca High who created a website on green refrigeration, which is, one of the top issues we got to address, and holding a green refrigeration summit. They were so impressive. And we've also hosted just a whole lot of salons and conferences, and we've been very deeply involved in promoting heat pumps for heating and cooling our homes and businesses to get people off fossil fuels, and fighting off the Dryden gas pipeline, that kind of thing. But back in 2010, I was motivated to start our own local carbon offset fund. I was witnessing a real lack of transparency and accountability in the carbon markets that were forming. Carbon offsets are a way of taking responsibility for your unavoidable carbon emissions. We're always educating about how to reduce your emissions, but until you get there, there are some unavoidable ones like air travel. But basically, you can take responsibility by making a payment to reduce emissions elsewhere. And these typically have gone to projects like wind farms and tree planting. But I wanted to take a more of a systems approach with our climate fund by addressing two of the main challenges to humanity, climate disruption and income inequality. So at our Finger Lakes Climate Fund website, you can choose to calculate and offset the emissions from your air or car travel or your buildings. We make it as simple as possible for you to do that, and even offer some quick offsets for those who don't want to stop and figure out anything specific. All of the carbon offset donations then that come to us then go back out in grants to equip lower income residents of the Finger Lakes region with carbon-free heating and cooling solutions for their homes. That's how we make that link. And, with these home energy upgrades, these households are moving towards a zero carbon solution and freeing up their household budget by having smaller energy bills to pay for other things that are pretty important in their lives. And of course, oftentimes ending up with cleaner indoor air, less, mold and mildew issues, lots of good health impacts as well. The result is homes that are climate smart and climate ready. We have always thought of this as a real win-win-win design. The people who are offsetting have a convenient way of taking responsibility for their emissions. The awardees get affordable clean energy in their homes, and it benefits our local economy because this is a little bit of gap financing that makes jobs go through and keeps our local green contractors busy. So who offsets their carbon emissions? Over the years, we've built up a community of people who take responsibility for their carbon emissions. As part of their climate activism, people offset their vacations, their honeymoons, visits to grandkids, family reunions, conference travel, business travel, campus travel. Colgate University offsets with us as part of their portfolio. Hamilton College is interested in offsetting with us. We're still waiting on Cornell and Ithaca College 15 years later. So I wondered, raise your hand if any of you traveled somewhere this summer. How many of you offset those emissions? May I invite you to fingerlakesclimatefund.org. Please visit our website and take responsibility for those emissions. As I mentioned, who gets the jobs are our local energy contractors. We've worked with them for many years now and have, very good, strong relationships, share a lot of knowledge, and that's very important in terms of being in partnership with the businesses that are doing this work. End up inadvertently oftentimes being the go-between between the landlord and the tenant and the owner and the team that's out there doing it, but we do what we can. And then who gets these offset grants? All of our awardees make less than 80% median income for their household size. That's the cutoff for being able to receive one of these grants. Single parent families are the largest category of awardees, but we also have a lot of senior citizens and young families, grad students at Cornell with families starting out, immigrant families, and some young single first-time home buyers as well. And we always want to emphasize that we consider our grant awardees to be climate heroes. They're not charity cases. These are the people that are taking the steps, to reduce emissions, getting their homes fixed up, lowering their carbon footprint. So we celebrate that. Although we started just in Tompkins County, we are a regional climate fund, and so far we've completed 113 projects that include insulating, air sealing, and installing heat pumps for heating and cooling, or heat pump water heaters, a little bit of solar over the years, and now 15 different counties of the Finger Lakes region. So we've expanded our reach. And although there's other incentives that these families are all tapping into, if not for our help, they might not have been able to take advantage of the clean energy technology because of, when you're low income, it's a stretch to find those last dollars, or the loan payment suddenly is more than your energy savings. So by bringing that down in many cases to zero for the family to get all these improvements, it's, been feels like a good thing to do with people. And that's been over $205,000 in grants given away. We calculate over the lifespan of the improvements made, 11,436 tons of CO2 offset by helping these projects go through. Our success with the Climate Fund led to being invited to work with Heat Smart Tompkins with a grant from NYSERDA to add extra money from NYSERDA to our Climate Fund grants to low-income families that were trying to switch over to a heat pump to get cooling and heating out of that heat pump. And so that was very successful. That was going on during COVID, and yet it was amazing how nothing slowed down. We were very busy. And then that led to a large NYSERDA grant to run a 2-year pilot to try to deal with the split incentive between landlords and tenants and get some heat pumps into low-income rentals. And then that led to the county giving us a grant to work on mobile homes. They're a really affordable housing option for lower income homes, but their lower quality construction can mean energy costs as high as 70% more per square foot than a stick-built house. So they really need help. And we ran a pilot project offering subsidized envelope retrofits and heat pumps to provide lower energy bills, all-season comfort, better indoor air quality. And we wrapped up that pilot this last spring as well. This summer, we pivoted to our larger vision of supporting the regional movement with new tools, such as the social network analysis platform I mentioned, and we're expanding the mini grants into Cuca, Seneca, and then the Southern Tier, and then another area, and trying to expand the climate fund, get more people offsetting in other counties, all in preparation for the challenging years ahead. In the past 2 months, we have found ourselves at the vanguard of those in opposition to the huge 400 megawatt hyperscale AI data center proposed for the old coal plant site on Cayuga Lake by Bitcoin miner TeraWulf. Adding a supply draw of that size to our grid is inevitably going to be driving up electricity bills for everyone in the NYSEG area, and it's going to really hit low-income folks hard who are already having their electricity cut off because NYSEG's raised our delivery rate so much and is asking for another 33% increase next year in the delivery rate. That's a case that's underway right now. Number of other bad things from data centers, but we won't discuss those right now, except to say that these issues with data centers have been happening to thousands of communities all around the planet. And I've suddenly found myself in meeting after meeting with groups from across the nation and other states, sharing information. So there's a real people's movement pushing back now, and in some cases, finding elected officials with the courage to pass some bans or some moratoriums, slow them down. Long term, we know that no matter what economic perturbations and climate upheavals, political upheavals, might continue in the years ahead, climate change and the resulting climate migration to the Great Lakes and Northeast is a reality we're going to have to address head on and not waste any more time in doing that. Our part of the country is going to become the habitable zone. As the South gets too hot and too dry to even work outside in. And that means a lot of people are going to be wanting to migrate and move here. It means we're going to need to work on increased housing demand, even as we also will have to bring back and diversify food production, because that's also going to be moving here. In New York, my background's in sustainable ag. I know about vegetable crops. I know we used to do that in spades in terms of fruits, vegetables, and wheat, grains. So we have that capacity to get out of big dairy and diversify, and we need to be making a plan for it right now. We're going to be looking for thought partners and leaders for that work in the months and years ahead, and who knows, maybe there's some in this audience that will end up working with us. So I invite you to get in touch if you're interested in volunteering, donating, becoming a sponsor, offsiting with us. Go to our fingerlakesclimatefund.org, offset those summer trips and the ones upcoming over the holidays. And we can all then see that money go back out and helping those in need in our community. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jake. We have time for questions. And I would like to begin with those in the room, and we'll pay attention also to our computer, where those of you who may be participating here remotely are invited also to post your questions. So does anybody have or questions, comments, anything you might like to say?
How to monitor the climate change and then allocate the fund accordingly?
Not sure I understand. How do I locate the climate?
How do you monitor the climate change? How do you
Monitoring climate
change and allocate the fund accordingly?
We're not monitoring, that's Cornell's job. That's Art, what's his name, Catano's job to monitor climate change. But in terms of how do I measure the impact of the work that's being done, I have been working with some of the state's top energy engineers. And so we have a spreadsheet based on all the databases out there that we are able to calculate if you're getting something off of propane and putting them on a heat pump, we can look at the specs on that heat pump and make an estimate of how much electricity the heat pump will use versus how much the propane would have taken, and then look at the carbon content, propane versus the electric grid, and you come up with your carbon impact.
Thank you very much for the fantastic work that you're doing. Two related questions. One is for those that live in Ithaca, including students here, ways and to get involved with this kind of movement. And maybe related to that, the effects of the current administration policies on your work, this kind of work that you're doing. Can you give us some concrete examples on how this is being impacted by the current policies from, DC?
We thankfully do not have any federal money in our budget, so we don't have to worry about that. We have been blessed with support from Park Foundation, which is a local foundation that supports lots of different things across the country, but there's a specific Sustainable Ithaca Fund that has supported our organization and dozens of others locally. So we have not been as impacted. I'm, of course, deeply concerned with the loss of democracy and the targeting of blue states and blue cities. And I know that it will eventually be impacting us here more than what we're currently feeling. I mean, I know Cornell is feeling it because of the federal dollars, but I don't think locals are feeling it that much, except for those that might be impacted by, if Cornell shrinks, their business might shrink as well. I'm not particularly working on that in that arena, but I see this battle with TeraWulf and the data center as very much symptomatic of the tech bros that are hanging around Trump and having a new Gilded Age where everything is to benefit them, and communities can just be sacrifice zones. We have to really organize and push back and refuse to be a sacrifice zone on a lot of things. And I was just in a meeting with Senator Webb yesterday and other staffers saying, what is the state doing in terms of sovereign wealth funds and hedge funds and BlackRock, et cetera, are buying up housing, farmland, water systems, urgent care facilities, public utilities. BlackRock just bought Minnesota Power. Iberdrola in Spain owns NYSEG and several other upstate electric utilities. We need to stop letting that happen and retain local control and local ownership. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves, serfs in a system that will be exploitative. We've already seen that where these entities are doing that, the rents go up. I think 16 of our 20 or so mobile home parks have already been bought up by corporations, and the rents go up. And these are low-income, vulnerable people, but they know they can't afford $5,000 to move their mobile home, so they can jack up the rent and not do maintenance. This is the business plan, and it's rampant. So I think we need, a big push to educate senators and assembly members to start thinking about what's legal recourse, what will hold up in court. Can the state have the right of first refusal for every time a big dairy farm goes up for sale, and divide it up into more diverse operations for young farmers who can't afford to own any land, with an eye towards the future of we got to learn how to grow the food again and have people on the land doing it. And I'd rather have them be their own farmer owning their own land than a tenant farmer working for a corporation. You know how that goes down, right?
Thank you very much for the presentation. I would say what big voice is really exciting. Given that, I was surprised I'd never heard of it. My first year at Cornell, and I have not seen any advertising yet for that offset program, but it was really exciting. So along that thought, how do you guys advertise? I got disseminate information. What's the strategy around?
Well, we're tiny. We don't have, I have interns that help me, and a part-time outreach person. We're spread a little thin right now. But in the past, we have been in the papers. If you read the local papers, there'll be stories about our awardees and the many grants, so our name is in the local papers. And we post on our social media, but the algorithms aren't all that friendly to us because we don't buy ads. We don't pay Facebook to boost us, or Instagram. It's just not in our budget. And when I have done that, I haven't seen a boost I haven't seen it result in more carbon offsets. So it doesn't make sense to me. We are working on an app. Some Cornell students have been working semester after semester to have a Finger Lakes Climate Fund app, and it's aimed at students because it also will help you with green tips and help you figure out other ways of reducing your carbon footprint. And we're hung up on one last thing and that'll only be on the Apple platform. Maybe a next student group will put it on Android, but we'd like to get that out to the campuses so people could be making. We know that the price of carbon is more like 150 a ton and keeps rising because the further along we are in climate change, the more expensive it is, the damage. But I've always tried to keep it affordable, so lots of people can participate in taking responsibility for their emissions. So we started out at 20, and now we're at $25 a ton, which keeps it, a person can afford to, even students can afford to offset their car travel for a trip home or flight. It's like $20 to offset a flight to California. But it results in these, grants that we can provide that gap financing. I'd love to be more well-known, but I'm also a little nervous with being quoted on the TerraWolf battle and then finding myself, people finding me and emailing me and inviting me to the Alliance for the Great Lakes. And it's sort of like, oh boy, this is a fire hose. So how are we going to manage the attention in this battle against Goliath? And that's where it would be great if that attention resulted in volunteers who are willing to take a piece of this and lead and be visible. We need a lot of op-eds and letters to the editor written into all the local papers. And we need people approaching our Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency, head them off at the pass, do not give them a sales tax exemption. That's their pattern. Oh, we'll give you all these nice property tax revenues. Meanwhile, we're getting millions and, be exempt from sales tax to build the thing. So that's where anything you can do as a resident of the Finger Lakes to participate in that, making voices heard is so important. Elected officials need that feedback. Otherwise, they're in bubbles. And it's the loudest voice and the more bullying lawyers, that are, right in front of you, and because that's going on, the bullying with the lawyers is going on.
Do we have any questions online?
Should I speak up?
Yes. Speak up. You want to stand up.
An anonymous an anonymous attendee said some faculty at Cornell share the Finger Lakes Climate Fund in their courses, where students can use the calculator and find out about conventions from travel. So that's just a little note that you guys,
Yeah,
the work is paying.
probably Mark Sarvery.
Hallie Arthur says, regarding the coming climate refugees, is there specific action we can take, and what do you suggest?
That needs to be a big conversation. And in the come next January, we're going to be relaunching our Finger Lakes Forecast webinars, and that's one of the topics. There are several people who are, kind of experts on climate migration. There's been a bunch of books written about it, the process, the stepwise progression of it. And I have in mind people I would like to be on that panel and that webinar as a place to start. But I've already seen a good 20 years ago, more well-off people aware of climate change, choosing Ithaca to move to because of its relative insulation from big climate impacts and its, sustainability movement. So that's why I created that original sustainability map, was like, stop bugging me, go to the map, figure out where you're going to plug in. It's just too much the point of contact. So we're going to need, so those people came with assets and money. But eventually the people that are coming are going to be kind of empty pockets, because who's going to buy their uninsurable house in Florida or Georgia? They're going to be migrating, maybe stepwise, but eventually here. How are we going to have the social capacity to absorb the horrible, ugly friction and meanness to these people who have left too late in terms of making the decision to leave home, which is hard. We've already got a lot of people from California escaping the wildfires who have moved here. So this is, hugely complicated. It'd be so good if Cornell would dig in, because it's a systems problem and a lot more people need to be working on it. And whenever you have big, hairy problems like that, you need entities that can be the organizer to hold the space for working on the problem, get everybody back there the next month, follow up. There's rarely any funding for that kind of thing. So it all falls apart. People come together, yeah, let's do this. Who's going to do it? Well, I'm busy. So a societal commitment needs to be made to working on this stuff together and funding it. It's not going to be me. I'm moving towards retirement, but for you young people, I mean, if you're good at organizing, we need organizers, shepherds, to keep things moving on these, and somebody familiar with system thinking tools that can help regular folks learn how to map a system and look at the feedback loops and see what's broken, and where we could make a change that's going to help solve a problem. There's a big intellectual challenge ahead for all you Cornell kids to take on.
Time for one more question. Anyone like to make a last comment or observation?
Thank you. I just saw in your presentation, you had something that said that you identify what were the barriers for people to participate. I wasn't sure if that was for adopting any of the practices or for participating in the grants, for example, like why people wouldn't apply to the grants or looking for participation.
Yeah, a lot of those two pilots I mentioned, the heat pump pilots, were there are pilots designed at looking at, we know of some barriers and then what other barriers are there. And one of the hairiest ones is landlords and tenants. The landlord does not necessarily benefit from making those improvements. A lot of times it's the tenant paying the electric bills, so they're reluctant. And I've been an advocate for carrots and sticks for a long time. It's like, here's the cost sharing subsidy from the public to make these improvements. Here's a law that says you have this many years to meet the standard of, insulating and air sealing your building. Without that, I mean, my pilot was pretty clear. You're not going to get, in a town that's 77%, a county that's 77% rental, you're not going to make much improvement. Because even with a fat stack of subsidies to these landlords that reduce their cost share to like 25%, and it's their building that's got improved equity in it, it's still, I'm busy with other things. It still wasn't enough to make it happen. And that means we need a city council with political will to pass a law. It was tried back in the 80s. Landlord Association put the kibosh on it, weakened it to the point of, immaterial. So a lot of political activism has to happen along with education and engagement.
Okay, well, I think we're all out of time, but thank you very much, Gay, for a really stimulating talk and for helping us recognize our responsibilities. And what I get out of this more than anything else was all the different touch points that there are. The way Gay thinks in terms of systems, it really helps me recognize that there almost any kind of skill, talent, passion that you have, you can plug in and really make a difference. And you can join the Tompkins County in the, Sustainable Finger Lakes movement while you're, here. But also, think about how you can initiate, catalyze, and do the convening, the types of convening that Gay's doing wherever you may be. Because, as she said, I'm passionate also about the need for community engagement and, because it's satisfying. And it brings out the best in all of us, I think, when we can figure out a way to do that. So thanks again for a really stimulating talk.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me here.